modern politics, with the circumstances of my resignation, it isn't really possible to be a proper backbench MP as a former Prime Minister. I think everything you do will become a big distraction and a big diversion from what the government needs to do for our country. And I support Theresa May. I think she's got off to a great start. I think she can be a strong Prime Minister for our country. And I don't want to be that distraction. I want Whitney to have a new MP who can play a full part in parliamentary and political life without being a distraction. I want to thank everybody here in West Oxfordshire who've been so supportive. It has been a great honour and privilege to serve this area and to serve these brilliant people. I'm going to go on living locally. I'll go on supporting the local causes and local charities that make this such a great place in our country. But obviously I'm going to have to start to build a life outside Westminster. I hope I'll continue to contribute in terms of public service and, of course, contribute to this country that I love so much.
Now, you could continue supporting Theresa May and the new government from the backbenches. That is possible by resigning in the way that you are today. You are leaving yourself open to the charge that you are snubbing the Prime Minister. You cannot support everything that she is trying to do.
Well, I spoke to Theresa May and she was very understanding about this decision. I support her. I support what she's doing. She's got off to a cracking start. Obviously, I'm going to have my own views about different issues. People would know that. And that's really the point. As a former Prime Minister, it is very difficult, I think, to sit as a backbencher and not be an enormous diversion and distraction from what the government's doing. I don't want to be that distraction. I want Whitney to have an MP that can play a full role in parliamentary and political life in a way that I think I would find very difficult, if not impossible.
One of the views that you've articulated very clearly and very often over the last decade or so is your opposition to the expansion of grammar schools. Therefore, by resigning 2 or 3 days after Theresa May in that speech announced she wanted a return to grammar schools in England, rather suggests you feel like you couldn't support that particular policy.
Now, this decision has got nothing to do with any one individual issue, and the timing in that way, I promise, is coincidental. But it goes to a bigger picture, really, which is whatever the issue, as a former Prime Minister, being a backbench MP, I think it is difficult just not to be the distraction, the diversion, and therefore build a sort of reputation for yourself in politics that I don't really want to have. I wish her well. I wish the government well. You know, in a way, there's a link to the decision to resign as Prime Minister. The country made a decision I advised against, but nonetheless, the decision's been made. I want the government to successfully pursue that decision and to get it right. And I think that as a result, actually, not being a backbencher but leaving Parliament is the right thing to do.
So can I ask you very straight, do you or do you not support the expansion of grammar schools as articulated by Theresa May last week?
Oh, I think there's very many good things in the policy. We actually, when I was Prime Minister, agreed to the expansion of grammar schools in areas where they already were. We set up sixth forms that were selective in our big cities as free schools. So lots of merit in the policy. But frankly, I don't want to get into the wheres and why-fors of this individual policy.
Given what you've said about grammar schools, it rather suggests you simply do not support their expansion. You've called them sheep and goats and everything else over the last 10 years. You were urged to expand them. You haven't. You're now leaving. Rather suggests you don't support it.
Well, no, I think that's not a fair reflection of what we did. We did actually allow the expansion of grammar schools in areas that had them, and we did set up selective sixth forms, particularly in our big cities. And as I say, I think there's some merit in the policy that's being put forward. My announcement today is not about grammar schools. There's no connection with grammar schools. It's purely one of timing. My view is, as I've said, I don't want to be the distraction and diversion that I think a former Prime Minister inevitably is on the backbenches. So it's with a heavy heart, because I love this part of the world. I love being an MP. I'm going to go on living here. Being a constituency MP is a great and fulfilling job, but I've come to the conclusion that actually the best thing is to stand down, and that's why I'm making the announcement today.
Finally, on your legacy, Mr Cameron, you wanted to be the Prime Minister that was remembered for reforming the Conservative Party, making it electable, reforming the economy, introducing gay marriage. You will admit now, though, won't you? You will be remembered mostly for taking this country out of the European Union.
Well, I'm sure I will be remembered for keeping that pledge to hold a referendum, when many people thought that promise would never be kept. But I hope people will also look back at the 11 years I was leader of the Conservative Party and 6 years as Prime Minister of our country as a time when we did create a stronger economy. 1,000 people found work for every day I was Prime Minister. And we did make some important social reforms, some of which you mentioned. And the Conservative Party went from being in the doldrums and getting beaten to being a modernising, winning force in British politics. But the historians will have to work all that out. I obviously now am going to be looking at a new life, but a new life. I'm only 49. I hope I can still contribute in terms of public service and contribute to our country.
And just quickly, what is that new life? Do you have plans? Presumably it's something lucrative that you've got lined up. What is the new life that you will do now you're no longer Prime Minister?
Well, I haven't made firm decisions. I need to look at all of that. The only firm decision I've made is to leave the House of Commons and stop being an MP. As I say, with a heavy heart, because I've loved the job, but I don't think it works for a former Prime Minister who resigned in my circumstances and with all the new government needs to do. But issues for the future, I'll decide them in the future, and hopefully, as I say, continue to make some service and some public service contribution to this country. I'll want to continue campaigning on the local, national and indeed international issues that were part of my Prime Ministership, where I think we made some good progress, but there's still a lot more to be done.
Prime Minister, David Cameron, former Prime Minister. Thank you very much.